Okay, so welcome everyone and thank you for joining today. So we will continue with the psychic education where we were talking about purification and how almost whole life is just a continuing process of purification, because as we live the way we are right now, it's like from time to time dust keeps on accumulating, and it's not just the dust from this lifetime, it's also maybe the dust accumulated over lifetimes. That's what we call sanskaras, tendencies, vrittis. So to become conscious of those tendencies and patterns that are ruling us, and that's why we talk again and again about becoming aware, becoming aware of our inner movements, becoming aware and conscious of what we talk, why we talk it, the words coming out of my mouth, the intentions behind the words, the intention behind my actions. So the more I become conscious of it, the more I gain power of transmuting them or changing them if necessary. Otherwise, we just are puppeted around by those tendencies and patterns. So if I really want to kind of dust off all that is accumulated on me, as you know, we were always discussing even in previous sections that we are all potential buddhas, we are all having buddha nature, all of us are divine in potential or in essence, but wo dikhta nahi hai. The way we act, the way we behave, the way we speak and talk, and the way we take our 24/7 the daily life, wo dikhta nahi hai. Nobody can say that this person is divine, that purity doesn't reflect itself. So my task as Ashpriya, and we were discussing, and she kind of pushed us towards this idea of effort. We have to put effort in order to purify ourselves. I think that's it. So that's why people say that you don't get anything when you get enlightened. It's just that you are putting effort to cleaning and cleaning and cleaning off the layers of muck, so that your divine essence is now shining forth. It's not blocked by those impurities. So that's our journey, to put effort to become more and more conscious of our movements within, which only we can know. So we have to be very honest. Nobody else can know. We can talk about it right now, but when it comes to the actual challenge, only we individually have the power to transmute it. So if I don't become conscious of it, if I continue to keep on working from my own hidden manipulative agendas and not give them attention, then I am just a puppet. I may be divine in potential, but there is no divinity really in me. So this power of consciousness, the power of being able to look at things and to see for what they are, this is a great power which human beings have. To see really things as they are, to recognize our weaknesses, to recognize our manipulations, hidden tendencies and patterns. Only this idea of looking, even if I may not have this eyes, physical eyes may not be there, but inner eyes, knowing will be there. And that knowing will know what is to be done at what moment. So if I identify myself more as that knowing aspect in me, then things relatively become simpler in my life. I am able to catch my own areas of inner work. So we were continuing with this, and the last time we stopped was here. This slide, I think we stopped here, where we were talking about this little technique of Tonglen coming from Buddhist tradition. Very simple, nothing, no complicated thing. That if I am finding myself suffering for anything, maybe I find myself craving for fame, name, maybe I find myself in jealousy, in anger, in desires, in pleasure, running after pleasures, anything that I find myself in. And if I recognize, if I become conscious of it, I immediately can transmute it. How? That I close my eyes, maybe if preferable, and then I connect with all the people who are undergoing the same desire. I connect with all the people who are suffering through the same desire, suffering through this same craving for name, fame, respect, approval, and I inhale that suffering. Now, because I connect with my own suffering, I can also understand that what will happen to those people who are undergoing similar stuff as me. So I connect with that suffering, I inhale that suffering, and I exhale the wellness and happiness out for all of us. So this technique is a very powerful little tool that one can use whenever one becomes conscious of anything which is disturbing in nature in oneself. Maybe you are tortured by running for pleasure. Maybe we are tortured by running away from pain. And the moment I recognize, oh my God, I'm running away from pain and it's giving me misery. So now I can connect with my own misery. And hence I can also connect with all the people who are trying to run away from pain and inhaling their misery and exhaling out happiness and wellness for them. So that's very, I found it very powerful. If some of us want to kind of experiment with it. So feel free to unmute and share at any point of time whenever you have anything. Yeah. So just kind of finishing the purification part and going on to effort, where I think there are a few quotations by the mother here. So if anyone feels ready, we'll go through this quotation by the mother, these words by the mother, and then maybe reflect over it. Anyone who wants to read this would be nice. This one, the development of new attitude. So these are words by the mother only. Yes, Ashpriya or Aradhana, whoever wants to go first.
There is but one remedy, a psychic mirror well placed in one's feelings, impulses, all one's sensations. One sees them in this mirror. There are some which are not very beautiful, pleasant to look at. There are others which are beautiful and pleasant and must be kept. This one does 100 times if necessary. If there is something that is not all right, it casts a sort of grey shadow upon the mirror. This element must be shifted, organized.
So this power, again, what we were talking of, this power of looking at our inner movements and hence the power to transmute them. This is not available to the animal beings and the other sentient beings. And that's why we say that if we have not become conscious of our own self, if we are not looking at what we are thinking, talking, feeling all the time and how we are entangled in all these things, then what's the fun of being human? Because you have missed the main point. The main point was that you are conscious. And if you keep on living like an animal, it's not to say that an animal is a lower being. It's just that as the evolution proceeds, in fact, animals are much more higher than the present day human beings because they are innocent. They are mostly living in their instincts. And that's enough. They don't have greed, they don't have hatred, they don't have jealousy. But we, on the other hand, who have the power to manifest the divine presence, the way we live at the moment is deplorable. Our condition is really very deplorable. So an animal does not have this capacity to look at what he's thinking, feeling, or whatever, and to transmute it. He knows whatever he's thinking, feeling, and then he follows it. That if I'm feeling hungry, okay, let me satisfy my hunger. But to overcome hunger is a power which is there with human beings. To overpower anger, to overcome jealousy, hate, and greed. So all these powers are within us. So this power of looking, mother says, a mirror, psychic mirror, something in us that knows, well placed in one's feelings, impulses, all one's sensation. So there is an inner light which is sitting with all of us. And if we make use of that inner light, I can actually pass through my thoughts, feelings, and sensations in front of that inner light. One sees them in this mirror. There are some which are not very beautiful. We see that, oh, ये थोड़ा ugly movement था, इसमें थोड़ी manipulation छुपी हुई थी, मेरे को इतना पसंद नहीं आया. So we look at our inner movement, and then we also it's also a kind of judging, one can say, discernment, that it's something ugly and I don't want to keep it. So जैसे घर को साफ रखते हैं, so in home also we see that, okay, what is rotting, to keep it outside and maybe compost it, and what is not rotting and utilizable, we keep it. So almost like that kind of a sorting. But if I don't even look, how would sorting happen? So there are some which are not beautiful. Only I can know, only we individually, all of us can know. They are not very beautiful or pleasant to look at. There are others which are beautiful and pleasant. Maybe a movement of generosity that you saw in yourself. Maybe a movement of kindness, a movement of compassion, a movement of a genuine understanding and helping that you saw in yourself. So that is to be kept. That is not to be thrown away. So there are movements which are beautiful, pleasant, and must be kept. Must be kept. This one does 100 times if necessary. So this looking and sorting, kind of cleaning the garbage, acha ye thought ai, past ki thought hai, isse kuch nahi milne wala, okay, you reject it. So this sorting is going on continuously throughout our day, 100 times if necessary. If there is something that is not all right, it casts a sort of gray shadow upon the mirror. So the more and more I become acclimatized to a simple life, the moment a movement of heaviness happens, a movement of egoistic consciousness happens, it will cast a shadow. It will not appear beautiful to me. Something will weigh down heavy. So stop there and notice what is happening in the being. Or maybe I'm again attaching myself to somebody. Maybe I'm wanting approval from somebody. Maybe I'm wanting again name, fame, recognition from somebody. Maybe I'm placing again my happiness on somebody else or a life situation. So these movements cast a shadow, like as if it's something dark within, which is not liked by the being. This element must be shifted and organized. So I think this is something which is enough for a lifetime. If only I can become conscious of this. But throughout the day, my consciousness, like a light, is on my inner movements. And the moment something heavy or burdensome happens, I immediately stop and take a look and give it attention. What's just happened? Let me see. And then we can shift it and organize it. And there may be times where we have already done that. It's actually it's not something which is talked about for the first time in life. We have heard this in several different ways. Maybe we have worked upon ourselves also. So if you have anything to share, please feel free at any point. So in absence of comment or reflection, I'll keep on going. Yeah, Ashpriya?
One thing which I feel that which happens is that we feel that, okay, this we have observed in us, and at least it has happened with me, that I have observed a certain trait in me, and I am trying to overcome it, and to an extent I have been able to overcome. And then something, something happens in my life, and then again I come back to that same thing. I mean, then I feel that, oh, then so much more work is still left, and I've still not reached that. Then, and at times it does feel that what was the point of putting in so much of effort if I again came back to the same place? I mean, just a reflection that, and this is sometimes it feels that it is even worse than the than the first time. That those whole thing is even more stronger this time. Maybe I'm observing more, that is also true, but at the same time I do feel that certain things are even more stronger, that whatever victim, feeling like a victim or whatever, that is even more stronger.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Mm, Sri Aurobindo and Mother talk about uprooting of tendencies and patterns. And they say that if you have thrown it away once, like you said, that if I have overcome it once, it's not that it is overcome. So which only we get to know slowly as you shared your experience. So I completely kind of agree with that. And then Sri Aurobindo says that if you have rejected the movement once, you think that you have overpowered it, overcome it, it goes away and stays in the subconscious for a long period of time. The moment a trigger comes, it comes back again, as you shared. And then even if again and again by repeated attempts, I derive it away from my subconscious, even then the story is not done, because then it stays in the collective universal consciousness. And from there it can come back again. So कहते हैं ना कहानी अभी खत्म नहीं हुई. But I think it's also beautiful because the next chapter that we are going to come to, which is effort, which talks about effort. So Mother says that why should we put effort? Because it gives us joy.
Yeah.
Even if, as you shared, in one moment when you were able to overcome it, even from 1 degree, not that it is completely overcome, even that 1 degree, it gives us joy. This self-exceeding gives us joy.
Yeah.
So I think, I think that's the self-motivation that we have to go on.
And I think after a point we can't really also go back. That is also another, like, even if I want that, oh, I will once again become ignorant, I cannot become ignorant. I mean, that is even more difficult, I think, now than actually.
Isn't that beautiful, that you cannot reverse it?
Yeah.
No matter how difficult it is, you cannot reverse it now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, very powerful. So let us continue. We'll read this from the Mother on, again, continuing with the, almost winding up with the purification part. The new attitude that has been developed in the being. So how to take life with this new attitude? So Mother shares something on this, and whoever feels ready, if you can read this part. Let me just, this one.
Take all things which irritate you as a lesson for yourself, and your life will be more peaceful and more effective as well. For a great percentage of your energy certainly goes waste in the irritation that you feel when you do not find in others the perfection that you would like to realize in yourself. If you are conscious of it, well then begin with the work which is given to you. That is to say, realize what you have to do. And the best way to the true attitude is simply to say, all those around me, all the circumstances of life, all people near me are a mirror held into me by the divine consciousness to show me the progress I must make. Everything that shocks me in others means a work I have to do in myself. So relevant, this I find. I mean, it resonates so well, maybe right now also. So, yeah.
And this, what Mother is sharing here, this also, this attitude, if we take in life, that everything that happens, it's a learning for my own self. It's nothing out there, but in here, I think it completely changes the power game, which we were talking earlier, that we keep on giving away power to people, situation, and happenings in our life. And the moment I take the responsibility and onus to my own self that, okay, whatever if is happening in the outer surface, it is a lesson for me to learn and grow and progress. I think there we reclaim our energy and power back.
Mm. Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we keep on, expecting and from situations, people, and whatever from my life, this would happen, that would happen, only then I will become happy, we keep on giving our power away. All of us have that experience. And the moment I take, okay, jo bhi hua so hua, I will take it, learn from it, and grow as a person. I think beautiful, if we can do that.
Yeah. Just that, I mean, I'm just wondering if this is the thing that, if, I mean, firstly, yeah, I mean, anyways, we feel at times that there is nothing we can do. At times we do feel. But, I mean, in that case, how do we remain ambitious? I mean, there have been incidents in my life, and it has happened, in a very limited time, that multiple times I have tried things and things have not happened. Things which are, otherwise, I mean, otherwise which I have been trying for a very long time. It's not, it's nothing is really manifesting, and this is really, strange also for me, that nothing is actually manifesting, which, which actually makes me feel that something, the universe is trying to, or, mother is trying to tell me that, yes, so, just be with this, with the time, this is it, this is. But then with that, how will I, otherwise remain ambitious, is something which I have been, thinking that, in that way, of course, right now, nothing can be done. But at the same time, as a human being, we there are ambitions which I think is also a part of our life. I mean, animals probably are not ambitious. We are. Uh, so how do we, balance that, is something
Yeah.
which I have been thinking that how
Yeah.
do I.
Yeah. Anyone wants to share anything on what Ashpriya is talking about? So when Ashpriya, you're talking about ambition, I think it's a beautiful opportunity to go into it. I'll just stop the screen share for a moment. So when we talk about ambition, uh, why do I want to be ambitious? Because
Because there is work, I mean, work, right? In some way, I have to. I mean, I feel that there is work to be done. Work,
there is work.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, not just. Of course, now, I mean, observing myself and self development is a work, but otherwise also there is, there is work to be done in the real world also, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, in
And
some way.
when you do work, so I am ambitious and I do work,
Mm.
what happens?
I feel I am meaningful. I
Yeah,
have a meaning.
I
Yeah.
have a meaning. So I'm doing something which is meaningful. And when you do something meaningful, what happens? What do you feel when
I
you're
feel
doing?
happy. Yeah, I know what the fact that even now I can be happy is what you're saying, right? So
Actually,
yeah.
what I was trying to point at that, uh, so the basic crux of the matter
Mm.
is that all of us just want contentment and happiness.
Mhm.
We can name it through desire, we can name it through ambition, we can say that maybe I want to have this desire fulfilled, and then I can be gratified and fulfilled and happy, right?
Mm.
So all these measures what we take are actually nothing but an inner movement towards that delight and happiness. Now, having said that, I also want to say that the more I become authentically who I truly am, the more my actions in outward world would be true, authentic, and meaningful. So now I will not be doing those actions because they make me happy, but I can't help spilling it out. So there is a difference in quality when we are ambitious and when we are following some goal, that if I do this, this will make my life meaningful and then I will be happy. Then we are violent, we are aggressive. But when I do it as a spilling of my whole own being, even then the work is being done. It's not possible that you do not do work, and work must be done. But now it will be more like a fragrance oozing out of a flower rather than some hitting and pushing happening.
अच्छा.
So the quality is non-violent.
मतलब वो खींच के लाना नहीं है. It's just,
It's more of
automatic
happening.
happening. हाँ.
But it's not that you did not put effort in that happening. The work you are doing right now in your being is effort. It requires effort. So it requires effort. It's not, don't think that you are not doing something. You are doing, Sri Aurobindo says,
Patience is also a problem, no? Patience, हम लोग, patience is a big problem.
Yeah. I think हमारा जो idea है ना of serving the world, it is a bit distorted, मुझे लगता है. So Sri Aurobindo says that a person who is sitting somewhere in the Himalayas in a cave, he is contributing more to the French Revolution than the people fighting. But we don't know. So we think that the only thing I need is fight. But I don't know what forces are in his power, the person who is sitting in his cave. Like Sri Aurobindo, he managed the whole world war, at the time of, and the Indian Revolution, Indian Freedom Revolution, by sitting in his own silent, times. So, what can be more bigger of a work than that? But having said that, again, depending on everybody's natural inclinations and tendencies, there are different works for different people. So some people may do better in meditating and silently, raising their powers and utilizing them. Some other people would be parallelly doing both inner work and also working outwardly. Depends on what our nature is, the inclinations are.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Sambhav.
So, like when we when we are meditating and we are also trying to look out for working outwards. So when we go out in the world, we see that the systems are all based on ambition, and the very ambition that we are trying to understand more deeply. But when we go out in the world and we apply for jobs, or when we start working somewhere, we find that the basic model of driving that work in that place is ambition, because there are targets, then there's punishment, and everything is there. So a person who is meditative, and the one who, as you say, that the fragrance is oozing out of that person, so can he survive in that system, or does he always go independently or start something of his own? I mean, that is the dilemma that I'm into right now.
Yeah. देखो, दो चीजें हो सकती हैं, दो भी नहीं, इनफैक्ट तीन. एक तो आपने खुद ही बता दी, the third possibility that you shared, that maybe that person starts something of its own because he has the power, he has the courage and the strength to go on individually, and then people join in, people continue to join in if the cause is good. The other thing is that if the person remains in the system, two things can happen, what I see, and please share if you see something more. One thing is that if the person is true to his path, is genuinely on his path and not trying to fix things, हमारा बार बार focus change हो जाता है. Instead of being on my path, I begin to fix things and people. While the fixing will happen, but it will happen like an indirect effect, like a fragrance oozing out. So that's how the fixing will happen. So if the person is genuine and true to his path, continues to be on his path, being in the system, the one thing that can happen is that the system begins to slowly shift and change. The other thing that can happen is that the system overwhelms the other person. But then in that case, I would feel that maybe there is a lack of trueness to my path. So the system begins to overwhelm the person, and it can happen with each one of us. And then we decide that I want to have something of my own, which is much better, kind of, than resisting and trying to protect something.
And also that when we think that the system is overwhelming us and we want to start something of our own, the very skills that are required to do anything out on our own, that comes from some kind of compliance with the system in the first place. Because initially when you go in a system, you need to learn certain tricks of the trade, and if you are there in the system and you learn something, only then can you start something of your own, right? For example, if my communication skills are not so good, then I need to first enter into the system to learn how the people are communicating with each other. So in that case, I have to first delve into the very system that I'm trying to change, or the very the road not taken, that we, as I call it, that road has to be taken first by initially entering into the system. Don't you think so?
No, I think somehow it would vary for really wherever the person is, and for each person it could be different. मुझे लगता है कि personally, so if I want to remain in the system and learn skills from there, beautiful, beautiful, keep on learning and whatever, develop skills that you may need. And then whenever we feel ready, or the kind of the life is ready for the next phase in life, then it happens. So I feel that the beautiful things that happen in our life, again, it's a limited view that I am sharing from my own perspective. I feel that most beautiful things that happen in our life are more of a happening as a result of being true to my path. And then if there are certain skills or something required on the path, they will also be learned. मतलब ऐसे क्या, what's the big deal? जैसे अब बच्चा पैदा होता है ना, तो out of love for the child, we learn so many things, जो पहले नहीं पता होती है. So out of love for the path that I am on, I will learn the skills.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing for me personally, again, because I am also on the path and would like to continue. So I feel that the best thing is to keep true to your path. Keep genuinely on the path. And I think uske baad, whatever has to happen will flower, will blossom. Whatever needs to let go of will be let go of. If I'm genuinely on the path of my own inner blossoming, then things will happen. I
try to keep that in mind, but as the day passes, we tend to lose the track of this message.
Bilkul. And then you come back to it again.
Yeah.
We all lose that, because the mind is a discursive mind. It goes out again.
Yeah.
And looks at people, acha wo ye kar raha hai, so
yeah,
it does affect us. And the only thing is, as masters have said, bring the puppy back, bring it back.
Right.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to share on what we were talking about? So this is where we come to towards the last end of the purification part. So I think we already touched upon this in the last, maybe the last class, I don't remember. So a few steps again and again to do is to review what is my aim in life. What do I really want to do? Is it that I want to have a big name and fame? Is it that I want to do something big, or is it that I want to continue working on myself? That's a very simple aim, very difficult also, but I think very powerful. And is it maybe I want to become more and more conscious of my own self, just being true to my path? Again, very difficult, but a simple aim. So this reviewing of the aim is like good, because as Samba was sharing, we do tend to get influenced by what's happening around the world, and maybe I should be there, I should be doing that. And again, ambition takes over, greed takes over, the greed for name, fame, all this takes over. So if we can review the aim again and again, what do I really want from my this life, human life, that really puts things into kind of picture proper. Start observing yourself from as deep as you can through the day. A few tips: hold your shadows up to the light or force, that the moment I see something shadowy in my being, I pick it up and I look at it, what's happening. So I look at it. I use the power of looking. Strengthening positive parts as well as by holding them to light. So what we were sharing, that if there is a movement of generosity, if there is a movement of genuine compassion, understanding, a movement of genuine sharing and caring, a movement of genuine love and helping towards anybody else and my own self, so we keep that movement. So also strengthening, not only just like of looking at all the weaker parts, that also will happen, but to also strengthen already that the positive parts in me. So we have to do those parallelly. And practice is something which nobody can go around with, like we cannot do without practice. All of us here, yes, Swapna, you want to share something?
Yeah, if you go back to the last slide, Monica,
Yeah.
It struck me, this hold your shadows up to the light force while being as deep inside as possible. And what I notice is often if I'm very deep inside, then it can almost appear like, like everything is fine. It's so quiet, it can be so peaceful. And then it feels like there is no shadow, right? Even my own. So it's like how to keep awareness of the shadow without then being very superficial and feeling bad about it or regretting it or any, just some of the negative emotions, which then seem much more superficial. So I was just contemplating that, like, how does one keep aware of the shadow or what needs work, while at the same time as being deep inside as possible, like you write there,
Yeah, beautiful. I think very good observation, Swapna. So this I have observed when we sit for meditation, we try to sit silently, quietly with ourselves. When you begin the meditation, in the early few minutes, it happens many a times that you are looking at the thoughts as if, stabilizing within your being, you are looking at the thoughts and no thought comes up. I don't know if some of you have observed that. So you are right here sitting ready to look at the thoughts, and as if all the thoughts are just hiding somewhere. They are showing that, oh, I am not there. Something like that happens. But
Yeah,
exactly. Have you observed that?
Yes, very much so. That's similar to what I was saying about, it feels like then there is no shadow.
There is no shadow. Yes. But I have seen that the more you keep on sitting, being anchored at that looking, being anchored as that conscious, the light of consciousness, slowly things come up. So we also see then that they have not gone. It's just that the moment I took a looking stance, they were just hiding. And mother says that when you remove a stone from a ground, many crawly, creepy creatures are there inside. So it's almost like that the lid is open and the box full of worms comes out. And the idea, especially when we sit and we do it, the idea is to keep on taking as the looking stance and let the thoughts and feelings come and go, like you sitting on the bank of a river and you're looking at the river of thoughts and feelings come and go. So not to get indulged into the story of thoughts, and there is nothing there. We are not going to get anything from indulging in thoughts and feelings. And the moment I get lost in thoughts and feelings, which will happen when we sit in meditation, as Sambhav was sharing, I get lost, we get lost in the ambition and the drama of the world. That doesn't matter. I bring my focus back again to the looking. So as many times as necessary, we do that. So the question that you were asking, that it appears that shadows are not there. So just to keep on taking as a deep stance, and once we hold or anchor ourselves in a deep stance, we do see that things come up in some time. And yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. And I guess where I go is, Mother said, then you put things in their right place. In another passage, she seems to indicate that, like, it's a situation or a case of putting everything in its right place. So then there I am sitting in that observation place or observing role and able to see the shadows, say, then wanting to put it right or to put it in its place if it's something that you see, that could have been done better, I could have said that differently. That's when then I feel like I get pulled out from a deeper place into something more superficial, right? And that seems to be that, a fine place to be in both.
Yes, beautiful. So what comes to me when you are sharing this is that there is no active thing that needs to be done here. So I totally agree with you that if I try to connect the dots in the thoughts and feelings and stories that come up, you will be pulled in. There is no point that you will not be pulled in. You will be pulled in. The idea here, why we sit in meditation at all, why to sit in meditation at all? The idea is that again and again, we lose that we are untouched, untarnished actors. We lose ourselves in the drama. So when I sit in meditation, the idea for me is, yes, I may be playing all those roles, but who am I? I am this looking, which is untouched, untarnished by all the dramas that may have happened or are happening in my life. So the more and more I take that stance of being this aware presence within, slowly, what will happen is that even the action that needs to be corrected will get corrected by its own. It will not be a mental movement that is happening and I'm trying to fix things here and there and trying to do better. So it will not be a mental movement doing better. Doing better would be a natural outflowering or blossoming of being taking a stance as aware presence. So there is no point that you can get pulled in again. But if I try to mentally fix the dots, you're right, we do get pulled in.
Yeah, thanks. That I get a sense of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Also, I get this feeling that when we sit for meditation and a lot of thoughts are coming and going, and the very fact that we get pulled in due to some thought. So I believe that when thoughts are coming, we are as if we are fighting a battle. For example, when you're in a battle, one enemy might be beaten, but the other enemy takes hold of you. So you are like constantly you are trying to evade the enemies, but some enemy would eventually get hold of you. So that happens with me when I sit for meditation. So we are pulled in, we are attracted, we are deceived by the nature of thoughts.
Yeah.
We are deceived that maybe this thought will work for me. Maybe not this thought, then the next thought will work for me. So that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And slowly through our own experiences, we realize that I did not really gain much by running after those juicy thoughts.
Yeah.
Only through experiences, this realization is going to dawn.
But that happens in the hindsight. I mean, when at that moment, in the moment when the thought comes, then you're swept away by the glamour of the thought. That
And then you come back again.
Yeah. So there's this hidden desire in us that why to fall in the thought fall for the thought in the first place.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very rightly said. It does happen. And that's our area of work.
Yeah.
That's our area of work. So
Yeah.
it's as if the actor again and again gets too identified with the role he's playing. He
Yeah.
forgets to be the actor.
Yeah.
You know? So the idea is only disidentification. That's what the masters have said.
Right.
Disidentifying ourselves from the thoughts
Yeah.
and identifying or knowing ourselves as that aware presence. Then you gain power in your being.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're trying to say that a bit of practice is also required
A
in
bit,
this.
not a bit, but a lifetime of a practice, Sambhav.
Right. Right.
A bit is not enough.
Because when I come from the Vedanta side, and there it's constantly repeated that you just say to yourself that I am awareness and I alone am real. So when I practice doing that, then that light I'm able to sense that light within. But when the thoughts come, when the Maya, the so-called Maya comes, and it's projecting all the images, which are very juicy, as you said, then we tend to lose the track of that light that in which everything is shining.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bilkul. And I think these areas in our life which are too juicy, these are the areas of my inner work. So for each person, these areas would be different.
Yeah.
You know? For me, it could be, say, my children.
Yeah.
That whenever thoughts about other people come, I am totally kind of unattached and detached. But the moment thoughts about my children come, I become involved in the thoughts. I am pulled in that drama.
Yes.
So that is my area of inner work. I have to detach from that slowly, not harshly, but slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for you, it may be something else. It may be workplace. It may be, maybe ambition, dealing with whatever.
Yeah.
So these areas in my life where I get pulled into the drama of thoughts are specifically the areas where I need more work.
Okay.
So I just have to recognize it and do the work. The work is of detaching myself from those domains.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So Mother talks about the importance of practice. Sambhav was also talking about practice, and without practice, nothing has ever happened or will ever happen. So it's a very unique paradox that we are in, that to become truly ourselves, to become truly the divine being that we are, we need to put in practice. Although we are that in a sense, but we need practice. Why? Because it requires a lot of purification is required. A lot of dusting, clearing off the dust and muck and all this clinging and grasping is required. So that's why importance of practice. Even when we talk about material skills like playing a guitar or piano, or maybe singing or art, just look at all the people who were able to do something good in these aspects. They practice. Hours of practice. They give their life to practice. And then we see their fingers running effortlessly on the guitar and we wonder, I also want to do that. But we don't see how many hours of painful, practice one has put. For that person, it may be not that painful. It's also joy, but it requires effort. So for people who we see are able to express things very beautifully, or maybe who are very inspirational in nature, they are disciplined, they do practice for in whatever domain it may be. And what we see outwardly is the manifestation of their inward practice. So without practice, nothing is going to happen. Even when we have to make tea or roti, or we all know that before it, somebody, for example, if you see your mother or father who's making the chapatis, you see, oh my God, they're so round, and how the hand is just moving like that. But then we also see that the person is practicing, and the first time we make it, it's teda meda and all chipka chipka. You need to put maybe more dry flour into it. But then slowly, as we gain through our own mistakes, errors, and failures, we slowly get a hang of it, and we also are able to make gol chapatis. So it's all a matter of practice. In even becoming authentically ourselves is again a matter of practice. So let us read these beautiful lines. Those of us who haven't read, who would like to read, anyone who feels ready, if you can go through this whole thing. Yeah, these are all
The,
words
import,
by the mother.
the importance of practice. If you're vigilant, you can do in a few days what would otherwise take years. Don't even take lightly all the circumstances of each day, all the tiny little things of life, all the small events. Never react with your lower being, with what is commonplace in you. Enter within yourself, try to find the best in yourself, and this you must react. It is very important, very important. In each heart, the divine's presence is the promise of future and possible perfections.
Yeah, thank you. So each one of us here today, all of us have read enough. We would agree that all of us have heard enough. And we know in our theory, in the mind, we know the ways and the tools and the practice and all, little hints and pointers. All of us have that. The only place where we suck, if I can say, is that we do not put enough effort to make it happen. And that's the thing that only us, we can do individually. I cannot do it for you, you cannot do it for me. And that's why the biggest enemy then is laziness or inertia or tamas. And people who talk about these three gunas, tamas and rajas and sattva. So people say that even rajasic gun is better than tamas, because at least you move there, you are pushed to move yourself. अच्छा भोग करना है, कंज्यूम करना है, तो अपने आप को मूव करोगे. So the biggest enemy of human perfection or human possibilities is tamas. And why is it so? Because we are born in inertia. Matter is inertia at the moment. That's why Mother and Sri Aurobindo's words, we again and again come across the darkness of the inconscient. So inertia is dark. It does not let you move. And that's why the requirement of pain and suffering in our lives, because that only makes me move. If I have, imagine that if I have everything in my life, things are going hunky-dory, सब कुछ तो है खाने पीने को, क्यों करूं effort? So who would care? But the moment things turn painful, I am pushed to make effort. That's the importance of pain. So the way we are right now as human beings, full of inertia, pain or suffering becomes a necessity to make us move. And in that way, it is a blessing. Ask all those people who have been moved towards the spiritual path just because they were suffering. So otherwise, I would not care to understand why would I understand spirituality, or why to know who I truly am when I am having a good life. Why to move myself? सब कुछ तो बढ़िया चल रहा है, अरे पैसे भी हैं, बच्चे भी हैं, सब कुछ तो ठीक चल रहा है, घर पे रहने को छत भी है, क्यों करूं मैं एफर्ट? But when we suffer, then we are propelled to make effort. So I think we have to be really grateful to our suffering, which has pushed us into this path. And without being on the path, it's almost a wasted, fruitless life. Because if I don't even know who I truly am, what's the point of living at all? And if I begin to put effort in order to know who I truly am. Even that little bit of effort one day gives me joy. It connects me with my own self. So that's the importance of practice. Mother is saying, if you are vigilant, if you are conscious of your movements and you are able to make little shifts in your being, you can do in few days what would otherwise take years. And every day, Mother here, the spiritual path is not disconnected from the everyday life. Don't ever take lightly all the circumstances of each day. So एक बंदे ने कुछ कह दिया, और वो कुछ अंदर ट्रिगर हो गया movement. Notice it, recognize it. उसको अलग नहीं कर देना कि that my workshop is different and this बंदा ये सब तो कबाड़ है. Nothing is कबाड़. So each movement that happens through a trigger in my life, I have to pay attention to it. What just happened? Don't ever take lightly all the circumstances of each day, all the tiny little things of life, all the small events. And Mother then pushes us, invokes us, never react with your lower being. Now the lower being is full of cravings, attachments, wants, demands, expectations. That's the lower being. With what is commonplace in you, enter in yourself, try to find the best in yourself, and with this you must react. तो अच्छा, किसी ने एंग्री वे में मुझसे बिहेव कर दिया, बिल्कुल कर दिया, बट अब मैं अपना बेस्ट एटीट्यूड यहाँ पे कैसे दे सकती हूँ? मेरा वो फर्ज है. उसने जो किया था वो उसका काम खत्म वहां पे. अब मैं उसको कैसे रिएक्ट करती हूँ? फ्रॉम माई लोअर बीइंग विच इज फुल ऑफ पॉइजन, और फ्रॉम माई higher self which is full of light and even can invoke light in the other person. So where do I react from? That's my that's my area of control, that's my jurisdiction. There I have power. On the other person I don't have much power. So try to find the best in yourself. With this you must react. It is very important, and Mother re-emphasizes that it's very, very important.
Monica,
Yeah.
something else that struck me about that particular set of lines, that how in an extreme situation, such as an example you gave, when I'm very triggered, that makes absolute sense, those lines. Actually, will you go back to the quote? Sorry. And what I realized reading this, never react with your lower being with what is commonplace in you. Then I realized that even some of the situations that seem easier, that seem like, oh, I'm doing, maybe a part of me even judges it as, oh, I'm being quite peaceful, or I'm handling this quite well, it's going well, whatever circumstances with whichever people. But then I realized that's when I can actually be a bit lazy or a bit lackadaisical. It's not necessarily what Mother's saying here, that enter within yourself, trying to find the best in yourself. And with this, you must react. Because I realized, I left myself off the hook in the circumstances that maybe are that little bit easier. But she's saying in every circumstance, all the circumstances of each day in that first line, right? And so it's like, say like it ups the ante. It means like the requirement is even a little bit higher than I was imagining. So it's not just the very difficult stuff, but it's literally every single interaction. It's a good reminder of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's again and again, I personally feel like coming back to that it's my journey. कुछ नहीं बाहर बदलना है. Obviously बदलेगा जो बदलेगा, but it will be a spilling out. It's actually our journey. And if I can put that little thing in the right place, that, okay, whatever is going through 24/7 a day, can I put the spotlight on my own inner being, inner movements? What's happening right here? How much of poison is there? How much of nectar is there? If I can keep a check of that, I think that's the biggest almost social service, if I can say, one can do. Because it really makes a difference that as we were talking about, that even if a person said little remark, that not a very exaggerated thing, but a little remark, and if you cannot react to that remark, then something little maybe overcome. And again, the moment I say, as Swapna was sharing, that wow, I'm doing this very nicely, I'm handling the situation, that's another thought, and I don't need to get pulled into that thought. I don't have to buy into that, because I know that the journey is long. So mother also shares on what you were sharing, Swapna, that to get self-satisfied with oneself is can be a biggest lead cause of failure. That wow, I'm doing really good, I'm managing things well, and then poof, another moment comes and you are lazy and one just slips into it, because you bought into the thought that I am doing really nice. So when this thought comes up in the being that I am doing really nice, things are looking very nice, just tell yourself it's okay, it's okay. You don't have to buy into that completely. Yeah. So let us take, I think, a moment or so, like 5 minutes or so, going through maybe the beginning of effort, and then we can maybe have reflections and then close. So as we were talking now, the next theme in this psychicization, or moving towards the psychic, or having a psychic life, and by psychic, it's just the terminology of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and it has been used by other mystics and masters in other words. So it's nothing special. It's just our enlightened nature. It's just our Buddha nature. So can we begin to live more and more from that, rather than from the dictates of the lower being, which is to be overcome? So anything we want to do requires effort. I want to make a cup of tea requires effort. And Kabir, one of the songs which Kabir shared is this one, which I like. Jatan bin Bawara re, Mirga ne khet ujada. So Mirga is referring to the deers, that without effort from your side, as the caretaker of the farm in which you are sowing your crops or taking care of your crops, without effort, without proper fencing, deers would come, and the deers of the senses, what I hear, what I listen, what I think about, all these deers will come and they will spoil your crop. So if I want to nurture and take care of my crops which are growing, the crop of inner awareness, the crop of inner peace and fullness, wholeness, then I have to keep a check. A proper fencing is required, mental fencing, like a vigilance, as we were talking in the other slide. So a vigilance or a satarkta in Hindi is required, that anything that comes and appears to spoil the kheti or the crop has to be kept in check. So it requires effort. And mother says that what it means not to make an effort. She shares something on this here. When I'm not making an effort, what am I doing? To go on making the same mistake, knowing that it must not be made, is an act of cowardice which we must not permit ourselves. So if I am attached to a person or a situation, and every time I act out of my attachment, do not make any effort to be more than my attachment, then mother says it's just as if you are acting like a coward. You don't want to put effort. You know what is to be done, and yet you are not doing it. Yet you are not stepping back. So stepping back requires effort. If there is a vital movement of attachment happening again and again in my life, and if I'm not able to step back, although I know I should step back, mother says that it's just lack of effort and cowardice. And why to put effort? And that's what we were sharing earlier, that why to walk on the path when it's actually requires so much of effort. It is the effort which gives you joy. A human being who does not know how to make an effort will never find joy. So when I see a movement which is a lower movement in me, which I want to overcome, and I take a step back, it gives me joy. That's why I must make effort. So it's a self-motivated thing. Nobody has to push me on the path. I already find the motivation because it's joyful. Those who are essentially lazy, we were talking about tamas or inertia, will never find joy. They do not have the strength to be joyful. And if we look into our lives, we do require strength to contain or hold the joy that is there. If I'm not able to contain joy, then I'll spill it out. I'll crack open like a plastic cup on which you are dripping the flow of maybe Ganges. That plastic cup cannot stand it. It will just fall apart and maybe swept away by the joy. So if I really want to be joyful, I also need to develop slowly the strength in me to hold or contain the joy, to contain the flow of Ganges, bliss or Ananda that we talk about. And Mother says that those who are essentially lazy, who don't want to put any effort, they will never find any joy because they don't have the courage or the capacity, the strength to hold the joy also, which comes after putting an effort. And if we recognize this in our being, we put effort. It is effort which gives joy. Effort makes the being vibrate at a certain degree of tension, which makes it possible for you to feel the joy. So it's very interesting here that it makes us vibrate at a certain degree of tension, like something is like a rope is tied, to two poles, and it's tight, it's strong and rigid also, and then it's vibrating at a certain tension, which makes it possible for us to hold and feel that joy that comes when we put effort. Yeah, anything here? Anyone? So I think we'll just take up this last slide here. In the part of effort, in the theme of effort, there also comes about will, when I'm able to will something in my life. So here again, I think it's not directly from Mother's words, but I think an interpretation from there. So whoever feels ready, if you can just go through this paragraph and then we can reflect over it, and after that we can end. Yeah, anyone who wants to read?
Normally, the process of conscious purification will continue for years. If the right will is at your disposal, things can move faster. For an effective use of the will, self-awareness is needed because each part of you has its own will. Through self-observation, you will discover that you have a higher will based on the truth of your innermost being. Then you have a lower will, the will of lower outer vital, which is generally the main supporting power for the choices of outer nature. That's why outer nature is often full of desires and rather egoistic. The mental will stands in between these two wills, and it can follow after the lower vital will or after the higher or spiritual will.
Yeah, thank you so much. So normally Mother and Sri Aurobindo says that normally we are all as if we are like a battlefield is happening within our being. The vital says the emotional being wants something else, the mental part wants something else, the body wants to be somewhere else. So as if there is a war waging within our being. And Mother says that what we have to do as a human being is a process of unification. that the whole of my being, the thoughts, the feelings, and the body want nothing but one thing. It's like, a unification has happened. So right now, the mind wants something else, the feelings want to go somewhere else, and the body wants to be somewhere else. So there is a battle within. And Mother says the process of integral yoga is actually the process of unification of our being, so that each part of my being is just aligned to one aim, one single aim. So there is no clash. So this thing, first of all, that the process of purification will continue for years. So we don't have to be in a aggressive rush कि अरे ये हुआ क्यों नहीं, अरे ये हुआ क्यों नहीं, अभी तो मैंने सोचा था कि ये साफ हो गया, but अभी ये फिर से आ गया. So it's a tedious process. But what keeps us going on is that each effort that we put gives us joy. And it, as Ashpriya was saying in the beginning, that you cannot turn your back now. No, you cannot reverse the process. You cannot begin to live again an ignorant life. So it's only going forward and forward towards being more and more conscious only. Now it cannot take a U-turn. If the right will is there, then I think I wanted to point out as this. Through self-observation, you will discover that you have a higher will based on the truth of your innermost being. I think here I feel it's easier to read these lines, but the process is a difficult one. And without, again, there can be many ways, but to me it appears that meditation or taking a stance as awareness, knowing myself as awareness, knowing myself as this conscious presence within, is an essential part of connecting with the truth of my inmost being. Without that, a higher will cannot arise. If I know myself as an actor, beyond the roles that I play, then only I can master my acting. But if I forget that I am the actor and I lose myself in one role only, I become too attached to one role in the drama, in the story, then I lose the power also. I lose the will also to make my acting better. So I think to come back again, I think today in the session, we were again and again coming back to it, to coming back again to our own self, taking a stance as this conscious living presence within, which is conscious of all the movements, but is not attached to any movement. If we are able to come back to it again and again, only then a conscious higher will be there, which will be able to steer my life towards a right and a worthy direction. And only then I will be able to overpower this lower will, which we were talking of, or this will of ambition, the will of greed, lust, hatred, all these kind of, hitting others and wanting to go forward. So all this is coming from the lower being, the ego, because the ego continues to feel a sense of lack, and hence what it wants to do is to fulfill itself. So, okay, let me get this, maybe I will fulfill. Let me get that, maybe I'll be fulfilled. But the fulfillment never happens and the race continues. So if I take a stance or know myself as this conscious presence within, the presence of awareness within, which looks at the thoughts, which looks at the feelings and everything else, and know myself as that, only then a will be there, which will be based on the truth of my innermost being. That will has the power to overpower the lower vital wills, overpower the greed, overpower the ambition and lust and all that. So this disidentification is absolutely necessary. इसके अलावा हमारे पास कोई चारा नहीं है. We don't have any other way out. We will have to know that we are the untouched, untarnished actor, not in theory, but in our living. In theory, we all know that. But it has to become my living. Only then this higher will kind of perpetuate. And then I think in the next session, we will take up this mental will, the last few lines, because it will continue maybe, which stands between the lower will and the higher will. and it can support by giving reasons. Why should I support vital will, or why should I support the higher truth of my being? So it's like a bridge. And mother says that it's very important to have a conscious control over this mental, the reasoning ability, that why should I walk the spiritual path? So one can give many reasons for that. So this reasoning ability is the part of this mental will that we will maybe touch upon the next time. Yeah, anything else here? Anyone wants to share or reflect? Yeah, any reflections, any doubts or questions? Yes, Swapna?
I was just thinking about that last little bit about, the mental will being able to support one or the other thing. And an example earlier today of, I had thought about sending a message to some people where we've had, we've not been on very good terms. They were friends. And I thought about sending a message today because their dog died. And then immediately it seemed like a nice, peaceful, right thing to do. And then on the other side came the message, oh, but the last time there was an interaction, there was so much tension, and they weren't very friendly. In fact, they were very aggressive towards me. And so I decided against sending the message, right? But in this last, what we've been looking at, discussing, I realized, like, okay, just to do the right thing would be to simply send the message, the first impulse or intuition that had come, which is, they loved their dog and he suddenly died in an operation. And I know they feel a great loss for what was for them a member of their family, and just to follow through. But it's amazing how it seems so, what can I say, so convincing, the other voice, to say, no, but they don't deserve it, or they should say sorry first for that last drama they caused, or, it's incredible how it really does. This mental will can really, really do both, be convinced of both sides,
Beautiful.
It's some kind of discipline to follow through on the right action.
Right. And I think it's a beautiful example that you shared, Swapna, that this is how the reasoning ability supports the vital movements. I think it's beautiful to catch this happening and then to choose what is to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. And to
Yeah.
be ruthless with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I think there are no further reflections. And I really thank you all for joining today, and to listen to so much and have the patience to persist through the session and sharing whatever all of us shared. Yeah, thank you for being there. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.